One Night in Miami is an imagining of what might have taken place one night in 1964 when Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke, and Malcolm X shared a hotel room after Ali defeated Sonny Liston to become heavyweight champ of the world. Now, right off the bat, this movie, once I heard about it, it was extremely appealing to me. And, I don't know why, other than, here, I'll just go into it. It's pretty simple, really. Like, for one, it was a historical era of American history, right? The peak of the civil rights movement, and should probably be important to every American, and honestly, for the entire world. But for me, it's probably a bit more self-indulgent. So out of these four men, I have read 3 of their autobiographies or biographies. And that's Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, and Jim Brown. And Jim Brown was one of the first autobiographies that I ever read. I think it was in like 6th or 7th grade when I read that. And it was intense. It was an intense book to be a first biography. But I've always been interested in the perspective of African Americans in the civil rights movement era, especially. Throughout my life, I would say the majority of the biographies that I've read were about African American men. And I was thinking about this, like, I wonder why that is. Why is it that I enjoy reading these life stories so much, more than any others? And I came to the conclusion that it's probably because I enjoy reading about struggle. I love stories of overcoming adversity. And honestly, who's faced more adversity in modern history than African American men? African Americans in general. Anyway, so going in, I already found 3 of these characters very fascinating. And since I had so much historical knowledge from reading books about them, about their lives, I thought I'd probably be a pretty good judge of whether or not the movie was a good representation of their personalities. So I heard about this movie where someone took some basic historical facts and then added some conjecture, added a story that could have possibly played out behind closed doors. So the movie's semi-autobiographical in that these 4 men did indeed stay in a hotel room together the night after Ali defeated Sonny Liston and became the heavyweight champ. But what was talked about and what went down inside that hotel room, no one really knows besides, the only still living figure from the film, Jim Brown. But I thought this was a really interesting idea to imagine what might have happened, what might have transpired in private. And after watching the movie, I feel like it was a fantastic representation of their personalities, of all these personalities. Now, Sam Cooke I wasn't as familiar with, but with the other 3, it seemed like something that definitely could have happened. Now, while there's no way to actually know for sure what went down in that hotel room, it's not hard to imagine that it might have played out in a similar way. Anyway, I thought it was a really creative idea, and I loved it. The conversations that took place in this movie were really deep, really meaningful. And I have to assume, because I'm not a black man, that, these conversations accurately represent, the varying perspectives within the African American community in that era, in the 1960s. I mean, some really amazing dialogue in this. It's from what should you be doing to further civil rights? Are you doing enough? Also conversations about prejudice within a racial community, like having discussions about the diversity within a racial group and the varying personalities and perspectives and how darker skinned people feel towards lighter skinned people and vice versa. And this is all very interesting stuff to me. And I just love how heated the debates got and the conversations got in this film. It was fantastic. I recommend this movie to anyone and everyone. It was really well done. And congrats to Regina King on her directorial debut. Awesome first film. I love Regina King. I especially loved her in Watchmen. And I don't know, you guys might know this from other videos that I've done, but Jerry Maguire is one of my favorite films of all time, and she's definitely prominent in that film. But anyway, like I said, based on what I've read about each of these characters, it feels right. It feels like conversations played out at least close to what they may have sounded like. And I love that throughout the film, they're each forced to see each other's perspective a little bit, and even, when Sam Cooke leaves the group after a heated argument, he comes back and Malcolm's demeanor softens towards him, right? And they come to some sort of understanding. And I feel like this is it's important to see, even outside of race and cultural debates, when it comes to wider conversations and wider interactions, when people communicate with respect, so much can happen in the way of, coming to an understanding. And maybe not always like agreeing with someone else's perspective, but at least being able to understand where they're coming from and how that can actually add to your own perspective and your own outlook, right? Anyway, I just thought it was an incredible film. I hadn't heard about it, and when a friend of mine brought it up, I was like, wow. Like that. Once I heard the premise, I was like, I'm definitely watching this as soon as possible. And I'm really glad that I did. Man, like seeing Ali uncertain right before he's about to join the Nation of Islam, and hearing how Malcolm felt about Sam Cooke's music and how he felt that, Sam could have been doing more, could have been writing songs that meant more, songs that made a difference. Now we don't even know if he really felt that way about Sam's music, but it is possible based on the personality, right? And this movie brings that idea and 100 others to life, all based on what we do know about the personalities of these individuals. I thought it was great when Jim Brown, he's pretty quiet throughout most of the arguments throughout the film, but once he did speak up, like, it was big. He kind of called out Malcolm in a way and made Malcolm think a little deeper about his own motivations. I can't get over the dialogue. Like, the dialogue in this film was just so well written. I mean, it made the entire movie, right? So good. So good. If you haven't watched it yet, you really should. All right. If you enjoy videos or podcasts like this, look, here's what I do on this channel. Every day, almost every day, I try to take a random subject, a random topic that I feel like talking about, something that, hopefully other people find important, but definitely I think is interesting. And I talk about it. And it's usually entertainment or pop culture related, but sometimes I dive into deeper things than that. But if you're interested in that, if you'd like something new in your feed, something new and hopefully interesting in your feed every day, then please subscribe for more, or favorite or follow the podcast, Daily BS Podcast. And if you decide to stick around and either subscribe to the channel or favorite or follow the podcast, then I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks.